Hello everybody, today I have Ranger's brand new products including the Liquid Pearl Stickles, and we are going to concentrate on the new metallic white texture paste. I'm going to share with you 7 different ways you can use this and what you can mix it with. That's right, there are 7 different ways. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and make a swatch for you using a white tag and a black tag with all of the new stuff on it so you can see the difference between how it goes on dark cardstock and a light cardstock. I do have these particular products listed for you down below. And I also have for you listed my affiliated link to Ranger in case you're interested in any of the stamps and stencils that I use in this video. You can find pretty much everything over on Ranger, including the new products, but I do have those listed, like I told you, separately down below. By shopping those links, it does help support my channel and allows me to bring you free content here on YouTube. And so I really truly appreciate you guys and helping me out. All right, check this out. Now, I am quite surprised. I thought for sure I would really like what that looked like on the white, and I do. But you just wait until you see what it looks like on the black. Check that out. Of course, the metallic white shows up a little bit better on the black, but look at all those other colors. Aren't they just beautiful? Especially that glitter. The Stickles really blew me away. All right, I am going to be doing all of this with the exception of one on the Wendy card front. You guys, you can go over right now to Ranger and nab those cards for $3 for a pack of 10. It's a really great deal. All right, the first technique is just to go and use the metallic white texture paste over a dyed ink. I'm using Clear Skies from Hurley, and I'm just going to blend it on through first. Now, it's important when you're using a dye ink that you do allow it to dry entirely before you try to smear your texture paste over it, because it will pick up that color. It needs to have time to dye the paper and dry so that the paste stays the same color. Now, I know it's only the summer here, although when you're watching it, it may be another time, but I really thought that this was screaming for some snowflakes, and so that's why I decided to do this background with my texture paste. So this is just the paste over dyed cardstock that you do with your typical dyed ink. Again, I'm using Hurley for this, but there are others out there, of course, that you can use. I just really like his color palette. And it's important that you go through and really try to get an even coverage over it. If you lay too much down, it's okay. You can just scrape it off and put it right back into that jar, and it will totally keep and you'll be good and you can use it again. So don't be afraid to be generous with this. And check this out. Look how pretty that turns out. You can tell that it is all white, crisp, just lovely. And you need to let it dry before you move on from there, but really pretty. Didn't pick up any of the ink that I had laid down previously because, again, I let it dry entirely. Next up, I thought, what will happen if I try to just mix the stickle color in on this? I actually saw this technique over on the Ranger YouTube channel when they were premiering and showcasing these products. I think it was Jess is the one that did this, and I thought it was really cool. So I just go ahead and take those new stickle colors, squirt it on out on 3 little piles here, and I just make sure that I blend it nicely together with my palette knife. Now with this though, you want to kind of make sure that you have just the right amount down that you're going to need to cover your entire surface, because if you don't, you're going to have to make up some more and you may get a different shade, because since this is being colored in with the white, it will lighten it up a little bit. So keep that in mind. I actually troubleshoot this a little bit, and you'll see why in a moment, but I did not lay out enough of my texture paste to begin with. But I really end up loving how my oops turned out. A lot of times my art is that it's a bunch of oopses, and this ends up being my favorite background that I create during this whole process, is because of the mistake that I made, and you'll see why. And I was just being resourceful, and I'm like, this might not work. I don't even know if I'm going to include it in the video. I'm going to have to start the whole thing over again. So you'll see why in just a moment. So I'm just going ahead, and again, I'm using that scraper, and I'm just scraping it across, kind of blending in those colors. Since it is a mermaid, I do want it to blend a little bit, but as you can tell towards the end, I don't have enough, and I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? So sitting out on my desk still are the new Stickle colors, and I'm like, oh well, I wonder if I can just squirt those in the spots that I don't have complete coverage in, and then just take and smear this out too, like scrape it on out. I know that's not the technical term. Somebody drop down below what term it is that I'm doing right there, because I can't think right now. I'm so excited. And as I'm doing this, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, that is so pretty. I love how it turned out, and it dried beautifully, as you'll be able to tell in just a minute. I was having so much fun with this one. So, you know, sometimes if you get an idea, you just got to go with it, because it turns out really nice. There it is. Isn't that beautiful? And then I go ahead and I use some of my Simon Hurley stamps and distress markers to finish off this card with that sweet little image. You're going to see in a few minutes how I created that blue piece too. Next up, I thought, well, why don't we try some dye ink spray? This is by DYLUSIONS. First, I want to get the background kind of done. I let that dry, set it aside, squirt some of this in here, and I'm wondering, is this going to change the consistency, the texture of this? Is it going to be too liquidy? How is this going to hold up under a stencil? And I was pleasantly surprised with how well it did hold up under a stencil. Now, at this point, I want it a lot darker, and so I just go ahead and open it up and dump some right on there, and I'm thinking, ooh, I may have just used too much, but I end up really loving how gorgeous this color is. And so I run it through a stencil that I have, and I want to do like a tropical type theme here. And so going back, it ends up being good, but if you are a little bit apprehensive with your detail stenciling, go ahead and use something that's not so detailed, just because it is a little bit runnier, because I did use a liquid base ink to color it instead of a powder or a ink pad itself. So just keep that in mind, that it may be a little loose. However, as you can tell, it actually holds its shape pretty well. So the dye inks from DYLUSIONS, the sprays, are a yes for sure. So very cute. Look how awesome that is. And then I just have this really darling stamp that I wanted to put on it. Honestly, I really like it also because I don't have to color much. Just stamp on it. It's good to go white, and there we go. I did add some of the new Stickles just to finish it off, and I do use pop dots on it. Okay, next up, I'm like, well, what will happen if I use some Distress Oxide ink on it? Because Distress Oxide, as it dries, it almost gets chalky. So I really wondered what the final effect of this would be. And you guys, it ends up being just gorgeous. Once again, I have 3 little piles there. I'm making sure I am shaking up my Distress Oxides really well, and I just mix it. This at first is a little bit scary for me because it's more liquidy than the one before. However, it is beautiful. This card at the end that I do ends up being a lot of fun, perfect for summer. So on this one, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to have enough of my metallic paste to go across. So I kind of randomly place this from one side with one color to another side with another color, and then back again, in hopes that that would help camouflage it a little bit and make the spreading a little bit better. And it turns out really cute. You'll see in just a minute. So once I get that all spread out, I went ahead and edited that out because you see me do it a couple times. Look how pretty that is. The Distress Oxide with the metallic paste is just lovely. Really, really beautiful blend and color. And it dried nicely as well. So I ended up using the scraps. I had some scraps on my paper. I'm on my desk and I didn't want to get rid of them. I had cut them down. I really liked the rest of what this paste looked like on my craft table. So I decided just to plop it on a background that I already had done. And you're seeing those pieces on the cards throughout this video because I ended up using them again, which was nice because sometimes I'll do this and then they'll sit on my desk and I'll forget about them. But I was able to use them up. So that was really great. And I thought that was pretty. I just didn't want to waste it, you know? All right. And then here we go. Another Simon Hurley stamp that I used. Pop Dots again. Stamp that sentiment on the extra white on the bottom, which was an accident. All right. Up next, alcohol ink. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, alcohol ink. Alcohol ink and this textured metallic white paste is amazing together. You do want to mix it fairly quickly because I did notice that if it had an opportunity to dry, I did get a little bit of specks in the metallic paste. But it wasn't enough to cause me to ditch the whole thing. I actually kind of like the specks, but I would recommend that you mix these colors up one at a time and lay them down like that, like do that one first and then go ahead and lay out your alcohol ink on the next pile, mix it up, and then go ahead and lay that down as well. And just work like that instead of putting your alcohol ink down all at once and then going back through and mixing it. Because like I said, there could be a little bit of specks in it. And if you don't want that, then you definitely want to do these separately. But look how pretty those colors turned up. And if you don't want all the color to be the same, wouldn't it be cool just to slightly mix it in and then it can be like a marbled effect? Oh, so great. And I got to tell you, any way that I can find a creative use to use alcohol ink, I am all about, because let's be real, you guys, that Yupo paper is expensive. And this is just a great way to get a lot of bang for your buck on your supplies. And look how pretty this is. It goes on nice and smooth. It's not as liquidy as the sprays were. And that could be because it is alcohol based, so maybe some of that liquid evaporated. I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but that's what I'm thinking. But look how pretty that ends up being. It's so lovely, and it blended beautifully in spots. Once again, I just love the excess that I have on that. So I go ahead and pop that down on a gel press print that I had. And you'll see that later in the card as well. And I still have extra and I'm just going at it. So don't disregard your pretty mess. Like, you can make stuff out of that. I'm still working on it here. You know, I'm trying to get as much as that up. I really love what that alcohol ink did there. And that is what I ended up doing with this card. Again, this is another Simon Hurley stamp. I like this stamp because you actually can stamp the image and then the details, and I don't have to color. Next up, I did use some watercolor paper for this, and I wasn't going to do it, but I decided that I wanted to because I thought it would work well, and I'm right, it really does work well. But this is a very messy one. I am using powdered pigment. Any powdered pigment will do. And then you want to spray it down on your background. And that's why I needed that watercolor paper, was because I was spraying that down and really soaking it. I needed a full coverage there on my paper. I am not linking through what pigment I used for this because, to be honest with you, it's not my favorite one I have used before. But for the blend in, it works really nice. And this is like a raspberry color. But again, any kind of powdered pigment is going to do the same thing. So keep that in mind. You don't need a specific brand for this. Any kind of powdered pigment that you have will do. Look how pretty that color is. And you can just continue to darken it up. Since this is a powdered pigment, it is not going to mess with the texture and the consistency of the white metallic paste. It's just going to change the color, but it's still going to keep that same structure, which I really appreciate. The stencil that I'm using is from scrapbook.com. I believe it's a Mums one, and it is more detailed, but it worked beautifully through this stencil because, again, there was no liquid that was making the paste runny at all. In fact, this paste really doesn't get runny even with the liquid, which is really, really nice. So really, at the end of the day, and we're not at the end of the day yet, I just want to experiment with everything I have just to see what it makes up, you know. And this was an afterthought one. That's the card that I created. You saw me make that little back piece with some leftover stuff that was on my pretty little mess on my desk. Again, Simon Hurley stamp set there. This is a fun technique, you guys. This one is actually, we're going to use our Distress Embossing Glazes. That's right, your Distress Embossing Glazes. So you first want to put that layer down of your texture metallic white paste from Ranger. I'm just laying that out. I'm making sure that it's pretty bumpy and there's a lot of dimension to it. And then I'm just taking my distressed glazes right there, and I'm going to create a confetti background. So I'm going to pop on one color, tap it off, pop on another, and so on and so forth. And why I like this better for this technique than regular old embossing powder is because these colors are a glaze, meaning there's some transparency to it. It's not opaque. So that means that where that pink goes over that green, you're going to be able to see the green and the pink. And it's not going to turn like an ugly brown. It's going to blend but yet still hold its own. It's very unique. It's a really cool concept. And if you let this set up for an hour or so after you lay this out, you won't get any bubbles. However, I kind of wanted bubbles, and let's be real, I'm an impatient person. So I went ahead and embossed this right away, making sure that I heated on the underside as well as the top. And look at that. Look how cool that ended up. So I bet you never thought that you could use texture paste along with your Distress Embossing Glaze, but it works and it's beautiful. So of course I created a birthday card with this. Again, there's that Simon Hurley, and then I finished it off with some Stickle pieces. I certainly hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Here are some more pictures of the cards and the finished pieces that I have for you. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave them down below. Make sure you check out my affiliated links. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you enjoyed this, please do so, making sure that you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I have a new video coming out. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and please share it with another crafty friend. Until next time, I'm Betsy Golden. Happy crafting.